Welcome to Storyteller, where I try to find the wildest story I can each week, and Teresa hears it all for the first time. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Teresa.
And do I have a story for you?
Ooh.
So, today's story takes us to the one, the only Butte, Montana.
We like Butte.
I know. Butte America, if you're nasty. They're always really like, Butte America. I think their license plate, the Butte license plate even says Butte America
Does
on
it really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have to pay attention. I want a Butte license plate now.
So when I lived there, I was like, oh, I'm going to get a Butte license plate. And then I learned, I didn't, thank God. But I learned that, like, you don't get the Butte license plate unless you're from
Butte.
Well, everyone will be like,
have to
no one's like checking your credentials, but everyone in town will be like,
side eye you. I know you from Great Falls.
I know. So if you were to visit Butte today, your eyes are immediately drawn to the gaping wound in the earth on the northwest or northeast part of town, where 150 years of mining have resulted in the current pit. Not to be confused with the great show, The Pit, with that dishy Noah Wiley. No, this pit is the product of open pit mining and is constantly having its innards pumped to rid of it of the poisonous fluorescent water that threatens to overfill it and contaminate the groundwater in Silverbow Creek that runs through town. It's awful.
It really is pretty, though.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Like, just the water, you're like, oh, it looks like the waters that you see in, like,
it's like a kaleidoscope.
Yes.
This colorful information, and along with the assault to the eyes when one descends into Butte from any angle, may have you missing the towering snow-capped peaks that almost encase all around and cut off Butte from the outside world. The shock of the pit also may have you missing the towering church steeples in every color and of every denomination rising from the midst of uptown all the way over to the college. You may also glance over the intricately designed brick and stone buildings to the left of the pit, standing like sentinels to a time forgotten to history. If you're brave enough not to scurry your way through town via the interstate after taking in Butte from this vantage point, and you wander into uptown Butte, the streets are quiet now, unless you happen upon town during one of its festivals, St. Patrick's Day, or even Knievel Days, in which case I suggest...
I didn't know Eva Knievel days.
They have Eva Knievel Days where people are like jumping cars uptown and shit.
Son of a bitch!
Yeah, big deal. It's actually so quiet up there that it's easy to forget that the town was once a cosmopolitan hub, the largest between Seattle and Minneapolis. Like, Butte was hopping. Like, people were like coming to Butte to hang out, and yeah, I'm like, what?
We go to Butte to hang out, so I guess I can't say anything.
I know, now we do, but it's because it's quiet now.
Yeah.
And since its creation as a mining camp in the 1870s, Butte has been held in the cold and unforgiving grip of the mining industry. And with it, coming hordes of money, people of every nationality from every corner of the world, and murder, drugs, gambling, and a near constant consumption of liquor. Also, we do that when we're there. And the seedy vices people indulged in to deal with all of it. When you learn all about Butte's history, the vastly different cultures thrown together, and the hard living that most had to do to fill the pockets of the Copper Kings, stories of wild happenings and incidents are not all that surprising when you hear of them. But what may come as a surprise is how Butte's wild history is closer than many can imagine. This is the story of Butte's Dimple Knees sex scandal, and how one Madame blew the lid on Butte's prostitution, gambling, and rampant police corruption in the 1960s.
Oh, too long ago.
Yeah.
Dang.
It's wild.
I would have been there around there. You didn't mention the lady.
I didn't. There's also the lady with Rockies. She is... Yeah. I was fascinated with her when I was a kid. And then when I lived there, I was like, never look up there.
Did you ever go up there?
I haven't. Have you?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't.
So I really don't have a perspective. Like, I've seen it. Like, I've seen, like, pictures like, of a school bus parked next to her.
Yeah.
And it seems she's quite majestic. But
Yeah.
I myself have never actually gone up there and been like...
Yeah. Google pictures of the Ladies of the Rocky and she's this huge... it's Mary, right?
Is it the Virgin Mary?
Virgin Mary,
like that?
yeah. Up like at the top of the Rocky Mountains overlooking Butte, and it is...
And she's just stark white.
Stark white. I mean, yeah. So our story starts with a woman named Balula Maxine Snodgrass. Love the name
made
Balula.
that up.
Nope. Balula.
I feel like you were like, I can't pronounce that. I'm just going to color in this.
No. Balula. She was born in Putney, West Virginia in 1921 to parents John and Minnie Snodgrass. And from a young age, Balula preferred to go by Beverly.
I can't imagine why.
I love the name Balula.
It sounds too much like beluga.
It really is. Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad. Because I think if you were just to see it and didn't have that association, you'd be like, aw. So that is what she would be known throughout her life is Beverly or Bev. Beverly was born into a large religious family. She said later there were so many of us, and I looked it up, and there was actually 12 children. Yeah, there were 12 children in her family. We never had toys, she said, but that was about the only complaint she had of her early family life. Her two brothers actually became ministers, but Bev took a different path and headed out west.
Yep, became a madam. Bev became a madam?
Yeah, spoiler alert. Bev would later say that her family was a good bunch. Everyone did really well, and it was really only her that was the troubled one. She was the only one that like got off the straight and narrow. She even said later, I was an alcoholic by the time I was 21. Like, she was living hard from the get-go, I guess. But she also said that her parents never knew about the twists and turns her life took when she landed in Montana. And that was something she was like almost really proud of. She was like, they didn't know. Nobody knew.
That means that she kept herself out of jail, or
no,
didn't it matter if she was able to get herself out?
No one was I don't know when her parents passed away, but like no one was calling back home to be like, we have Bev here. So when she did finally arrive in Montana, she lived in Great Falls, working as a waitress in a little establishment you may have heard of, Tracy's Diner.
Shut up.
Yep.
I love it.
I know. I was like, I know them. I hate them so much.
Do you remember the Tracy's before?
Yeah.
The gross, greasy spoon that was open 24/7.
Yes. One of the books that I was using for research for this was like one of the dishes was noodles with a hard-boiled egg on top, and I was like, well, I don't remember that. I must have blocked that out.
Interesting.
I know. I was like, who came up with that? Who put that on the menu? Once she was in Great Falls, Beverly married Maurice Cameron in 1958 in Great Falls. But the marriage and Bev's life were not what she was looking for, and the pair split only after 3 years. They parted ways, but they never officially divorced. She was just like, bye. She packed up and so she was like, bye, Maurice. I'm going to Butte. I heard waitressing's better there. So in the 1960s, Butte was wide open still. It was gritty and it was vibrant, and it still had that like mining camp feel, apparently, defined by like intense industrial activity. Liquor was legalized now, and everyone was very excited about that. And they had also deep ethnic roots. Like, there's so many different nationalities that they call it a melting pot, Butte. Mm-hmm. And that's why they call it Butte America, because there's everyone is there, it seems like. It is known as the richest hill on earth, and it was a bustling hub with 24-hour bars, rampant illegal gambling, and a prominent red light district. John Couglin, a reporter from the Great Falls Tribune, who we'll learn a lot more about later, said of some of his visits to Butte during the 60s that Butte bar owners saw the law, this was a law then, that their establishments needed to close at 2 a.m. more of a suggestion. And something,
no,
and they were like, that doesn't apply to us. They were like, that applies to the rest of the state, not Butte. A lot of the bar owners were like, we just need to stay open for the minors who are getting off shift. And like, they need to have a drink.
Yeah.
So a lot of the bar owners were like, go through the motions. They'd like just turn off their neon signs and like draw the shades, and then everyone would just stay. So John Coughlan, even this reporter, said that there were a couple times he was in Butte and he was walking back to his hotel as the sun is rising, you know, over the beautiful Butte mine shafts and stuff, the head frames. So some liquor stores in Butte also really catered specifically during this time to selling to minors. All they did was sell the booze to the underage drunkards with a 75% or 75-cent markup, and everyone went away satisfied except for an irate and outspoken priest who learned of the practice and was like, "Oh my God, the children!"
Well, were they like minors, or were they like 17, 18-year-old minors?
I don't know exactly. In this, but there is a story after all of this come crashing down, because there's a shift of focus to like the underage drinking, but the Butte police had to like arrest a gang of 12-year-olds for DWIs on bikes. Yeah. And I was like, I just wish I could like watch a show about Butte in like this time period. Like, he also said of Butte in the 60s that there was rampant backroom betting. So gambling is illegal apparently at this point, and that backroom betting often overflowed into the front rooms and was seen by Coughlan and a reporter friend from Colorado as they sat eating their pasties, swimming in brown gravy in one uptown Butte eatery. Coughlan's astonished friend asked him about the brazen betting going on, but was met with just a shrug from Coughlan and a blanket response that was, "We're in Butte." He's like, "I don't know what to tell you." Yeah. So Butte, is safe to say, during this time was still much more of an old west kind of town, and not so much like the rest of the country world, like in this atomic age, you know, we're moving on. Butte was very much like crazy still. So I'm like, oh my God, that was not.
I'd go to Butte.
Huh?
I'd go to Butte.
Yeah. I'm like, probably sounded fun, you know? So
well, I've gone there for St. Patty's Day, and that's pretty crazy and wild.
When I lived in Butte, Austin was he was a baby, and I had to work. And in Butte on St. Patrick's Day, I don't know if this is still the same thing, but the daycares would have to close because parents would just drop off their kids and go uptown and get crunked up and then come back and pick up their kids. So yeah, and so the Butte daycares had to close down. So when St. Patrick's Day was coming up, you had to go like underground to find a babysitter for your kid. You had to know people, and I was new in Butte, so like thankfully I worked at a bank, and so I was like, who's gonna watch this kid? You know, like I have to go to work, and you know his dad was in school and he was working, so I'm like, well, I don't know. So I had to like find this like, back channel daycare, and they were like, don't tell anyone you brought your kid here, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Times are different, because now somebody told you that, you'd be like, are you like, I know, child trafficking?
I know.
And everything, and you're just like, back there, you're like, yeah, have my kid.
Bye, Austin. Yeah. He was fine, but yeah, it was so crazy. So you'd have to go these like back channels to get a daycare for your kid. St. Patrick's Day
should almost be a federal holiday in Butte, where like
seriously, someone
down.
should step in, because so yeah, with all of this like going on in Butte, miners again risk their lives each day in the mine, and that big stress needed ways to alleviate that stress. So, along with all the illegal gambling, were in the 60s 5 prominent brothels are still running in the 1960s. 5. Which,
well, didn't the last one shut down like in the 80s?
1982.
Yeah, see, that's crazy to me.
I mean, it probably would have stayed open longer. We'll kind of touch on that brothel a little bit, but it would have stayed open longer, but there was a robbery, and like the madam was kind of like pistol whipped or something, and then all of her money stolen, and I think she just kind of gave up after that.
Yeah, okay.
But we'll talk about her. She's very interesting too. Okay. It was probably this thriving and often round-the-clock openness that drew Bev from her failed marriage and waitressing job in Great Falls, hoping to make some more money in the wide open Butte. She did start her Butte adventure waitressing in Uptown. She didn't, but it wasn't long before Bev had heard whispers of a much more lucrative line of work in the Mile High City. Bev had decided that she was ready for a better life and wanted to make a lot of money quickly so that she could, be able to go away after a couple years and just kind of live off of her savings. She no doubt thought she could do this by joining the other ladies of the night in Butte. Tenderloin District is what it's called.
I don't know how I feel about that.
There's some names. So overall, it's called the Tenderloin District. When it first started going, there was one alley. I have a picture of it. I'll put it on social media, but there was a couple block or at least one block, but the whole thing was female boarding houses, but each side was like prostitutes. And then the alley was first called Pleasant Valley. Alley. I always said Pleasant Alley. Then it went to Venus Alley. And then finally, as it was still dwindling, they're called cribs, where it's just essentially like a bed in there. That's all the room is. When it went to just that and not these like nicer parlor houses, it was called Piss Alley. So lots of colorful, keywords here. So she thought she'd probably be able to make a little bit more money than she was waitressing if she joined the Tenderloin District, and went to work at 14 Wyoming Street, earning $20 for every interaction. 14 Wyoming Street was a long-running and notorious female rooming house. Originally called the Stockholm Hotel, which is hilarious when you think of it in terms of Stockholm Syndrome. And the holds of these establishments had over the males in the community. But eventually the bordello would just become known as 14 Wyoming Street, and it would be featured heavily in Butte newspapers for, over its history as the site of regular murders, stabbings, assaults, robberies, and white slavery. The paper, I guess, was just like, guess what happened last night at 14 Wyoming? They were spilling the tea, I guess, every day. So when she went to work there, Bev was popular with her clientele, and she had many repeat customers. Over time, as a working girl, she said that there was only one raid the whole time, and she was the only one of the girls who got caught having to pay a $300 bond after the incident. So it sounds like raids were kind of a normal thing, but she only experienced one while she was doing this line of work. But Bev wasn't only popular with her paying clients. Tony Delmo, a Butte bar owner, was Bev's boyfriend. So she's got a steady boyfriend. And when she went to work at 14 Wyoming Street, the brothel was operated by Andrew Arigoni. And I am sorry if I'm saying that wrong, because there's still like a lot of people with this last name, so I really apologize if I'm not saying it right. And his common law wife, Lee. Andy had met Lee in 1956 when she was operating the thriving Russo Hotel and Bar that Andy frequented. Lee quickly fell in love with Andy, and just as quickly, he started beating the shit out of her.
Oh, lovely.
Andy was an all-around super guy. Not only was he shacked up with Lee, getting her pregnant often and beating her, no matter if she was currently carrying his child or not, he actually was already married to a different woman named Dorothy June.
Was he beating her too?
Probably. And he had 7 to 8 kids with Dorothy June before So it's no surprise then, after learning what a great guy Andy was, that under fear of what might happen to her, she didn't agree. Andy made Lee sell the Russo, and Andy said they would use the proceeds to buy 14 Wyoming Street and operate the brothel.
Oh God, he's the last person that needs to be operating a brothel.
Right. He assured Lee that she would essentially be in the role of madame and would not need to entertain clients, but it wasn't long before he forced her into prostitution there, keeping up with beatings until June 9th, 1959, when a 2-month-along pregnant Lee, fresh from a beating that Andy had given her the day before with a washing plunger, he beat her so hard that the washing plunger broke into 3 pieces.
Not 100% sure I know what a washing plunger is.
I don't know what that is either.
Okay.
But this might have been like where they were, back then. So I don't know. And it didn't say like, is that metal? Is that wood? Oh, here she goes. Lee, again, fresh off of this beating, bought a revolver and tracked down her piece of shit husband as he watched a card game at the Board of Trade bar in Butte. The men surrounding Andy said that they didn't even recognize Lee when she walked in because her face was so bruised and swollen from the beating Andy had given her the day before. And as she entered, she said, "Andy, I need to talk to you. You're not going to hit me again, are you?" Like, she said, I went there with reconciliation in mind. And she went in and is like, I need to talk to you. Can you please step away from watching a card game? You're not going to hit me again, right? And he hit her in the bar. And so she pulled out her revolver and shot Andy 5 times.
Good for her.
Did you find out what it looks like?
It looks like a plunger, but it's like metal, but it has sharp kind of like jaggedy edges on it too.
Oh my God.
So those are pictures of them.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh God. That looks medieval.
It does. I'm not exactly sure what it does, but
yeah. So she shoots Andy 5 times in front of everyone. She lost the baby she was carrying from the beating shortly after, and thoughtfully sent a bouquet of flowers to Andy's funeral in Dillon from her jail cell. It should be noted that in the 1950s, there was no legal consequence for domestic abuse. In fact, it was considered a private matter that police seldom attended to. Domestic violence was not recognized as criminal, and nationally, it wasn't recognized until 1994.
1994?
Yes. So...
No, really?
That's what I found. Yeah, I was like, I'm putting it in there. That's bullshit.
That is bullshit.
Yeah, so at a national level, state laws might have been different, but as a national, it wasn't recognized as a criminal act until 1994. Awful. So at trial, Lee was found not guilty of murder, but sentenced to 4 years for manslaughter, but only served 9 months. Thanks mostly to her high-profile defense attorney, a man who would go on to become a well-respected judge in the district, James D. Freeborn. Lee, who is also known as Ruby Garrett, is a fascinating character from Butte. She would go on to buy the Dumas brothel, the one that I want to go to.
Okay. I was going to say, I recognize that name.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Dumas is the longest-running brothel in the United States. It ran for 100 years, so from 1881 to 1982, when she was beaten up and then had to close.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's fascinating. Her whole life is like, what the fuck? I went kind of down a rabbit hole.
Is she still alive? Is she still there?
No. She passed away, I want to say the late 90s. I don't know that for sure, but like, and then what was it? I think it was before she was sent to, it was in the 80s. So when she had to close down the brothel, the IRS was like, hey, you owe us some money for tax, And so she was charged with tax fraud and had to go to jail, like in California or something like that, for not very long.
Fuck you, IRS.
I know.
I'm not paying taxes anymore. I'm done.
Boo!
You tax us enough. I'm so fucking over you.
Yeah. And so, but before she went to jail, like, Butte had like a going away party for her.
Nice.
Yes, and like the newspaper like wrote up about the party and stuff, and I guess it was just a huge big thing. And so yeah, she's so interesting. So yeah, we'll probably have to do a whole episode on her at some point because she's fascinating. So 2 years after Lee Aragoni turned her good for nothing, abusing shit stain of a husband into Swiss cheese, Bev bought 14 Wyoming Street brothel from the Andy Aragoni estate with the help of her bar-owning boyfriend, Tony Delmo. He was like, I'll front you some money. She paid $16,000 for the building, $3,000 or $4,000, I saw it 2 different ways, in cash from Tony, an agreement to pay the rest in payments. So she was moving on up, I guess.
Good for her.
Yeah. At some point during all of this, Bev must have thought that her new elevated status as a madame meant she was entitled to a high-profile boyfriend too, and Tony wasn't going to cut it.
He gave her the money.
I know, and it seems like I was trying to work out the timeline, and it seems like almost either there was some overlap or immediately after she was like, good day, Tony. Yeah, so
fucking rude.
I know, Beth. She found the perfect candidate in a man who had already shown a soft spot for another prostitute in town, James D. Freeborn, the defense attorney, married and highly respected defense attorney who got Lee Aragoni's charge of murder down to manslaughter and her possible 25 to life down to just 9 months. So Bev was like, hey, Dan. Tony Delmo, the lowly bar owner, may have given Bevy the money for Wyoming Street, but it was her new highfalutin lawyer boyfriend who handled all the paperwork when she bought the bordello. So she was like, Tony, oh my God.
She was probably already seeing that guy
I'm thinking, yeah.
She's like, wait, I just need to do one more thing. Get some money. Then I'll break up with him.
Well, just 1 minute. Bev was now in her madame era, and she had worked hard to go from waitress to working girl and now to being the madame of her own brothel. And she completed this transformation by dropping the bar-owning Tony and throwing herself into a torrid and passionate love affair with the high-powered and well-respected attorney. So she was like...
How old do we think she is by now? You've got to guess.
I'm going to say mid to late 30s.
Okay.
Or, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Yeah, early 40s at most, I think. So, and I think that this lawyer was about 10 years older than her.
Okay.
I think, yeah. No, maybe almost 20 years. Anyways, yeah, so they're not the same age, that's for sure. Bev must have thought she had it all, but she was very, very wrong. Later, she said, once you start a house, they won't let you out. So, Bev, in her madame area, fit the stereotype of being a madame with a heart of gold. Like, she was just...
If I was going to be madame, that's how I would be.
Yeah, I'm like, everyone is wearing the nicest clothes. Y'all are going to the doctor.
You don't feel like working a night suite?
That's
okay.
fine, that's fine. Men are the worst. Bev later said, I was good to my girls. She was very concerned with their health and safety and even their education. Some of her girls took correspondent courses to earn their high school diplomas, and 2 of her girls actually left her employment to attend college and earn a degree. So she was like, and she would lend them money if they needed to do that. So, further, Bev seemed to have thought of the girls as her kids, almost, in some respects. Obviously, not in the way that she only gave them 60% of the money they made, but in the way that Bev threw absolutely huge parties for each girl when it was her birthday. Like, I guess it was just like little girl birthday parties and stuff, cake, and I was like,
pretty dresses.
I
and
know
tea
you're
parties.
there, madam, in a brothel, but that is sweet.
That is.
Bev would boast later that she had a very low turnover of only 45 girls during her time as a madame. I have nothing to compare that to. I don't know if that's true, a low turnover rate, but I'll believe her. No idea. Haven't owned a brothel. Besides her care for the girls, Bev supported charities and bought gifts each Christmas time for the children at the Butte orphanage. She said that she really, that was just a very satisfying thing for her, and she always said it was because they didn't have any toys as kids. She's like, I've got to do that for them. And so throughout the year, she would support other charities, and then it sounds like the orphanage would just get showered from her every Christmas. So I'm like, oh, okay.
She's pretty okay-ish.
Yeah. So when she wasn't running her thriving business, Bev was spending time with her boyfriend. James Freeborn, again the prominent attorney who was married, was extremely attentive to his mistress, Bevy. They spent time together in the Butte area, or when they spent time in the Butte area, he would drive her out to the remote areas of the Butte Flats, south of the Butte Country Club and the Trap and Skeet Club, and according to Bev, that's where they would park so they could smush. I was like, oh my God. These edge of town trysts would lead to Bev becoming pregnant, I think just once. It was kind of unclear because she said she had to go to 2 prominent doctors in Butte to finally get an abortion. So I was thinking at first that she got pregnant twice, but I think she just had to go, to 2 different guys to finally get it.
Okay.
So I think only once.
Is that the only time she got pregnant, though?
I think so. That's what it made it sound like. So, yeah. It's kind of unclear. But have an abortion, she did, and later remarked that the cost of it was very high. But again, it's unclear if she paid for it or if her paramour was paying for it. One thing he did for sure was send her a sentimental card and a heap load of roses for Valentine's that year as she was recovering from her abortion. Here's some roses.
How nice.
His card is signed from Jay, one who knows. I don't know what that means. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He was sentimental for other holidays too, sending her giving gifts for every holiday from her birthday to New Year's, which, Casey, you haven't yet to get me a New Year's.
You guys don't do that?
No.
Oh, I thought every loving couple did.
Every mistress. Yeah. And if he did it for all these holidays, even, ironically, Mother's Day.
It's weird.
So
Mommy issues.
Yeah. Okay. So from his decent smushing skills to his frequent gifts, Bess was head over heels for old Freeborn. She was smitten, kid, and she just loved this
Except
guy.
for he's married.
Super married. Yeah.
What if he's doing all that stuff for his wife too?
Yeah, you wonder if they're just like, 2 of each, please. You know, or what if, like, here's 2 addresses. I don't know.
Like the local jewelry store has like each of their respective birthdays and whatnot.
It's gross. They would then start to travel together. Their first trip was to Whitefish, where Freeborn registered them in a hotel as husband and wife. Bev was definitely the smitten kitten, as she later said of this trip. I lived there for 1 week as his wife. We played golf, we went sightseeing, and made love every night. Made love deeply every night. Cool. More smushing. When they returned from this trip, Bev, using the name Maxine Stevens, rented a house at 1911 Locust Street, and the Lovebirds, fresh off their romantic vacation, actually moved into the house together. Yeah. Freeborn separated from his wife at this point.
Okay. I was going to say, where the hell is the wife
I know. She's probably, they were like, she has menstrual cramps. Commit her.
Probably. Kind of in the basement. It's fine.
I know. Who fucking knows with these guys? So the new living arrangement was short-lived, though, and Freeborn returned to his wife after just 3 weeks. But this was far from the end of Bev and James' love affair. In fact, Bev said that Freeborn rarely missed an evening coming to the Locust Street house, her favorite poodle waiting by the door each evening for him to walk in and toss the waiting poodle into the air like a baby. He's like, I'm a child.
I'm not going to lie. When you said poodle, I thought it was like a metaphor for something. And I was like,
moist pearl.
Oh, no.
She also said, I was very much in love with this man, and sometimes we just had so much fun and laughter together. Their affair, even after he went back to his wife, who by this time he had been married to for 27 years, was far from secret. In fact, many a night was spent playing pinochle, listening to music, and partying with Bev and James, inviting his siblings, her family members over, like, whole gang of them, like, worst kept secret, apparently. Her nephews were also frequent guests, and the nephews were so comfortable with James' presence in their aunt's life that when they would come barreling into the Locust Street house, James would be lounging around in his boxers, and the nephews would tease their pseudo-uncle, calling him Pretty Legs, and then Dimple Knees. The nickname stuck, and Bev would use the monkey, I can't say it, from then on. I had to look that up. Because I was like...
You had to look at Dimple Knees?
Yeah. I was like, I think I know. But I don't know.
There just needs some dimples,
yeah,
right?
No, I know. But I was like... I was just overthinking it. I saw the picture. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, like, that's... Okay. So anyway.
So like a poodle and a moist pearl? Or Dimple Knees something else?
Yes. I can't trust anything after researching all the shit I have. So 1961 and 1962 was hot and heavy times for Bevy and Dimple Knees. For her birthday in 1961, Dimple Knees gave Bev a diamond engagement ring, complete.
He's married.
Yeah. And he completed the set with a gold wedding band for Christmas that year, telling Bev he hoped that she could wear it legally someday. Bruh, what?
But you already left your wife and you went back to her.
Exactly. What in the world? So, I don't, yeah. This is the case I was telling you about that I wanted to go to the Butte archives because every single thing in her life is in this file called the Snodgrass Report, which I'll elaborate on. It can only be accessed in person in the Butte Archives or the Mansfield Library in Missoula. And the weather this week, I was like, I ain't driving to Butte. Because there's a lot of things in here, some of the times and everything. So I had to use a couple books for my references. But yeah, some of the timelines and just like this stuff, like, you didn't explain that further? What the fuck? Yeah. What were you thinking? I want to know what Bev was thinking during all of this. That's just, I'm just, yeah.
She's just happy. Her and Dimple Knees. I just want to know what his wife thinks of this.
I know.
Mean, why hasn't she left him yet?
Right. Probably because she couldn't. She probably didn't have any money. She probably couldn't go anywhere.
See, I'd like to think that he didn't leave her because she had all the money.
I love
like it was her family's wealth, and he was like, "Ooh." It
was an overboard situation with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell.
Yes,
where he was like, "She's like, I have all the money," and he's like,
"Exactly."
Yes. So 1962 saw more traveling for the couple. 2 trips to Glacier National Park, as well as trips to Missoula, Great Falls, Dillon, Idaho Falls. Each trip, Bev said that Dimple Knees would register them as husband and wife. The two, Dimple Knees' wife and kids be damned, seemed very committed and deeply in love with each other. I mean, there's rings being exchanged. There's a little love nest they're renting, you know?
Yeah.
But in 1963, their relationship seemed to start its downward spiral. It could have come about due to Bev being tired of being the other woman, realizing finally that the prominent attorney would only be hurting the upward trajectory of his future by blowing up his family for a brothel, madame. She might have been like, wait, I don't think he's telling the truth. Or it could have started to unravel due to the iron grip Dimple Knees' grubby-ass fingers had in Bev's businesses.
Ding, ding, ding. Mm-hmm. That's why.
Mm-hmm. Later, Bev would say, who would have ever suspected that the happiness I was having might someday cause me financial regret?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what it was. That's why he kept doing the rings and this and that.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't leave his wife.
Yeah. He is a 100-tier gaslighter. This motherfucker. I am like, wow. So right from the jump of their relationship, Dimple Knees started weaving his way into Bev's business dealings. Like, she started seeing him because she, I don't know, got word that he would be able to help her essentially own this business and fly under the radar. So she was like going to him as a lawyer for, you know, help or guidance. And he must have thought.
And he was like, ooh, honeypot.
Mm-hmm. So
all those gifts that he bought her, he probably bought with her own money.
She says a lot of those trips that they took, she paid for everything. What the fuck? So poor Bev didn't even notice how much control James Freeborn had over her business and life because she was too busy falling in love with him and being love bombed by the corrupt attorney. By the time she came down from that high, she realized she had been roped into a deal with the devil. Bev originally met Freeborn, as I said, when she needed a lawyer to help her with the logistics of running a brothel under the radar. Freeborn, through multiple consultations, probably saw a golden goose sitting in front of him and gave her the advice to just pay off officials. And that would allow her to run her business without interference from the law. It seemed a small price to pay to keep her businesses running smoothly, so Bev complied. The payments started out small at first, and Bev was making money and in love with the same smart man who gave her the advice that allowed her to rake in the cash. So in the beginning, she's being love bombed, she's making all this money, and he's like, Dimple Knees was so helpful with that pesky paperwork that comes with running a successful business and started to take care of her tax documents for her too. He's like, I got you. Bev was so thankful and in love that she would sign any tax forms Freeborn would put down in front of her. She was like,
she didn't even look at them. She just
did
signed.
Not. Yeah. She was doing so well that she soon bought a second bordello, the Windsor, just down the street and around the corner from 14 Wyoming Street. The Windsor was once an opulent parlor house, and when Bev purchased it, it still retained some of its old splendor and a lot of the antique furniture throughout the building, but it was old and it was on a slow march to falling into despair. Like, it was a step up from 14 Wyoming, but it still was an old ass building.
Okay.
But now that she owned 2 brothels, those small payoffs, which Dimple Knees was always like, I'll take care of you. Like, I'll take care of all of it. Like, this is just how much you need to have ready every month, and I'll handle whatever. Yeah, so now that she owned 2, those small payoffs were starting to rise. Freeborn had arranged it all. He set it up so that his brother Bill, also an attorney in Butte, would stop to collect the monthly payoffs from Bev, and old Dimple Knees would make sure all the right people were paid, so Bev didn't have to worry about anything. He was like, I got you, girl.
So essentially nobody was getting paid, and he was just pocketing the money.
Sounds like probably just him and Bill working. Because pretty soon after this, Bev had to start paying the cops, too. Separately. Apparently, the monthly payoffs she was giving to Dimple Knees were not being transferred to the group of people who could protect her girls. At first, Bev didn't mind. It was $100 a month to the cops, and she said it was worth every penny when they showed up to take care of an unruly John. Sometimes the cops would actually come in and stay in the brothels overnight for a couple nights when a particularly scary John threatened Bev or her girls with killing them and stuff. So a couple times the police were like, we'll be here. Yeah. So
that was nice.
Yeah. That's kind of where they ended being nice. But just as Dimple Knees and his bagman started to insist on higher amounts of payoffs as the years progressed, the cops became more greedy as well. The $100 a month was not enough, and they demanded $100 for every visit they had to make to one of her houses. Then they started demanding more. The company of the girls for free whenever they wanted.
Whatever, no.
Bev, her relationship with Dimple Knees dwindling and her once lucrative business being bled dry, started to speak up. She was like, hey, what the fuck? I think when she first went into business, she had to pay $400. And I was unsure if it was $400 a month for both places, but pretty soon it was $600, $700 a month. She first lashed out at Dimple Knees by complaining of the ever-increasing payoffs handed off to his brother Bill each month, but Freeborn was quick to silence her with threats, reminding her that all the tax documents that she blindly signed and informed her that she was signing falsified by him, and that if she stopped paying those payoffs, he'd alert the IRS to all her tax fraud. Yeah.
I'd be like, he was my accountant.
I know. Super cool guy. All around great dude. Yeah. Other times, if that threat wasn't working, he'd say he'd have her committed to Warm Springs if she didn't stop her threats of blowing up his corrupt activities. So he's like, if you have one more menstrual grab, I'm putting you away. So the toxicity of their relationship was reaching new levels, and Bev acted out. While drinking in Uptown Butte, she met a brick contractor. And after only spending time with the man a total of 3 times, she married him while drunk off her ass in Las Vegas. Back in Butte and unaware of her Vegas nuptials, Bev received her marriage license in the mail.
Oh, she didn't even know she forgot.
She forgot.
Like blackout drunk.
So fucking drunk. And so she gets home and she's like, that's vacation. Not teach Dimple Knees. I went out with another man. Married him. Incredible. So she gets this marriage license in the mail and is like, fuck. So she goes and tracks down her husband, and she's like, I need a divorce. Like, I didn't want to do this. I don't even remember it. And the man's like, sure, I'll give you a divorce for $10,000.
Oh my God.
In 1968, this man, or 1963, this was, yeah. He's like, 10 grand. Bev ignored his ass.
Wait, isn't she already married?
Exactly, yeah. Bev ignored him and her technical new title as bigamist. And she never divorced, because she had never divorced her Great Falls husband.
So therefore she can't marry a new guy if she's already married.
Yeah, so thankfully the man didn't pursue the matter, which was all for the best, because Bev was having some mounting problems. She did inquire with a lawyer at some point, maybe a year later, and was like, hey, I got married. And I'm already married.
I don't remember
And he was
being
like,
married.
it's invalid, don't worry about it. So she was just like, yeah, fuck him.
Plus, it's a Vegas wedding. How legit can those be?
I mean, I would just see Vegas on any of those and be like, yeah, nulled. You don't need to explain. That's fine. So in 1964, her ever-increasing balking at the increasing payoff amounts resulted in a dynamite explosion at Bev's 14 Wyoming Street property. In retaliation, obviously, for her increasing refusal to pay and in an effort to have one of her businesses destroyed, the dynamite was thrown. But it all happened, but all that happened to the brothel was a broken window. However, it was the window of her office. And later, one of the investigators was like, yeah, if you would have been sitting there, you'd have been fucked. Like, you could have died, and stuff. So, so it like knocked down a little bit of a fence and then broke a window. So it wasn't the end of the world. But 14 Wyoming Street was already kind of crumbling. So it didn't do anything for the building. It was kind of like, still, after everything she was going through, because of him, Bev still saw Freeborn. With him creeping into the back door of the Wyoming property once to twice a week, each week, with her, to sleep with her, all the way until the middle of 1965. Like, girl.
So how long has it been now?
It would be 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Even if this was the end of their romantic relationship, Dimple Knees wasn't ending his goal of bleeding this cash cow dry each month. Like, he was like, we might not be sleeping together, but you still have to pay me payoffs. Freeborn still sent his brother to collect the monthly payoffs, often circling the block in his maroon Pontiac in front of Bev's establishments, as his brother Bill was inside demanding payment from the woman Freeborn had love bombed as he set up his scheme to drain her financially. Like, he was like, I'll pick you up. You go inside.
So that's the problem, is people get greedy.
Yeah.
And eventually he's going to bleed his cash cow dry.
Yeah.
To where there won't be anything left if you just would have stayed at the steady payment.
Right.
I mean,
yeah. It's crazy.
People.
It's so bad. Finally, in 1966, Bev's anger made her hire a private investigator. For the next year, W.F. Sanders worked to prove that all Bev had told him about her relationship with Dimple Knees was true. He even retraced the steps Bev said her and Dimple Knees took on their romantic getaways, and he found that Bev was telling the truth. Every establishment they had stayed at had Bev and Freeborn registered as husband and wife. This private investigator was like, people will hide their identities for the simplest reasons, and this motherfucker was like, no, in fact, I'm gonna list my mistress as my wife. After he had proved that Bev was telling the truth, he moved on to trying to prove that both James and Bill Freeborn, the Butte cops, and other government officials were taking payoffs from the madam, and probably other people. Over the year it took for Sanders to compile the evidence that would become known as the Snodgrass Report, he compiled a large number of affidavits, films, photos, tape recordings, and even handwritten notes from Dimple Knees that documented his instructions on falsifying income for her illegal businesses. So he's like, here's the handbook. It's just like, here you go. He left this behind.
perfect.
Yeah. Many of the affidavits came from the girls who worked for Bev about the abuse the police department heaped on the girls and Bev, from forcing themselves on the girls to beating Bev with their clubs if they saw her in an uptown bar.
What?
Yes. They would just beat her ass like in uptown with their billy clubs. Crazy. To one of the bagmen beating Bev so badly in the Windsor that she had to be hospitalized. So, her girls saw all of this and they submitted. And it wasn't just the working girls. Like, they had a cook and a cleaner in these houses, and these women were giving, statements and all sorts of stuff. So there was a lot of evidence to what Bev wasn't just pulling this out of her ass because she was scorned,
Yeah.
I think that is what motivated her to be like, really? In January 1967, when Bill Freeborn was inside the Windsor collecting the first of the year's payoff, James Dimple Knees Freeborn circled the block again in his maroon Pontiac as he waited for his brother. Bill was telling Bev that their new there was a new amount expected each month, $1,000, a $300 raise from the previous year's $700 a month. It's crazy. The bleeding of Bev Dry had just been kicked up a notch, and the police and their abuse was reaching new heights. Bev would later tell of one of the policemen who she described as a sex maniac. She was like, this guy was the scariest motherfucker I ever encountered in my life. And I mean, she was being beaten up in Uptown by people. Like, she said this guy would turn up all the time, and he turned up one night in February 1967 and took on all the girls. Is how Bev described it. I was like, what? Yeah.
Okay.
So he was definitely should have been in law enforcement. Yep. Bev like helplessly watched as he tore through the Windsor. Like, she couldn't do anything because he would have probably killed her, you know. So things were getting very bad. And by the end of 1967, Bev estimated that she had paid $75,000 in payoffs just since 1961.
Damn.
That's so much money.
So much.
God. In her heyday as a madame, Bev employed 6 highly popular girls, but by 1967, she was down to just 3 girls in her employment and just 1 by 1968. Bev's time as a madame was coming to an end, and she was finally kind of forced to close up the Windsor in June of 1968. As Bev waited on a prospective buyer that summer, 4 different fires were started in the Windsor within a 48-hour period. As it sat vacant in July. Like,
that's not weird at all.
Yeah. The fires ended up doing too much damage, and the Windsor, the house that Bev had thought would set her up for life, was condemned. She couldn't even sell it. It was just, gonna have to be torn down. And it was torn down in 1970. So sometime during this period, it's not exactly said when, but from what I can tell, sometime between June 1968 and September 1968, Bev found Jesus.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, we found God. And she also became an anti-vice crusader. I'm sure after the W.F. Sanders Snodgrass Report was released, like, he worked on it for a year and he sent it to the officials. It was released and nothing happened to any of the men that were named in it and who rolled her for every penny she had. Bev decided to change her tactics. Encouraged by another anti-vice crusader in Butte, Father Finnegan, Bev went to the Butte paper, the Montana Standard, with her story. Really to expose the corrupt officials in town, but was declined. The Butte paper was like, no.
We don't deal with that.
Yeah, we're not new. She tried some other newspapers in Montana. Like, she shopped around. She was like, hi. None of them would take the story. Except for the Great Falls Tribune.
Yes.
In his book...
People talk shit about Great Falls and everything, but yeah. There we go.
We're chatty.
We're a bunch of gossiping fucking yentas here.
In his book on the topic, John Couglin, I mentioned him earlier, says that in the 60s, the Tribune was actually known for crusading journalism. I was like, what? Did they make you say that? But I guess the Anaconda Company, as in the OG Anaconda Copper Company, still owned most of the newspapers in Montana in the 60s. Oh. Except for one, the Tribune. I was like, what year is this? That's crazy. So when the Tribune had Bev's story dropped in their lap, John Couglin traveled to Butte to interview the former madame, who was hoping to tell her story and that it would boost the anti-vice crusade in Butte. And probably undoubtedly, like, everyone would know what that fucker was doing to her. She was probably like... Couglin met with Bev in the office of Reverend Joseph Finnegan at the Immaculate Conception Catholic Church, where she felt safe. Couglin remarked that anyone who laid eyes on Bev without any knowledge of her prior life would think that she was there just to discuss the upcoming bake sale for the church in her prim blue and white checkered dress. Like, I guess she was just...
Full pearls.
Yeah, and she was like, I was fucking the district judge. And John Coon was like, okay. In front of Father Finnegan, who was like, yes. crazy times. So Bev did not hold back and divulge every sordid detail that she knew. John Coughlan wrote it all down. And on October 13th, 1968, the first installment of the Tribune's 8-part series on all the different vices that ran rampant in Butte printed.
Were you able to find that?
No, I wasn't, but it was because I was too cheap to buy a membership to newspapers.com or something.
No, just even at the library, they didn't have, don't they have the little...
I didn't look at that. I have John Coughlan's book.
Okay.
So I thought, well, he's a pretty good reader. I mean, he wrote all these, but I've seen pictures of the actual articles in the Tribune and everything, and it's... yeah. So the Tribune had to hire an extra truck to drive to Butte each day while this ran, and they had to print an extra 4,500 copies on a daily basis while it ran. People were like, oh. So they had
all of a sudden, like, Butte became, like, subscribers to the Great Falls Tribune. Like, send us that paper.
Yep. On day 3 of the series, a giant bold headline on the front page boasted, Butte Madame tells of payoffs and Spurs crusade against corruption, accompanied by a full-length photo of the stylish Bev in a shiny white dress in front of the Christmas tree her and Dimple Knees had put up one year in their Locust Street love nest. She looks really cute. She looks so cute. Unbeknownst to readers, cut from the other side of Bev in that picture was Dimple Knees, posing alongside their Christmas tree, clad in an undershirt, polka dot boxers, and knee-high socks held up with sock garters.
So she's all elegant, all dressed to the nines, and he's in his undies.
Yeah. Holding the poodle. I guess he's holding the poodle in the picture.
Stop it.
He's like, Christmas. So the Tribune's parent company, as much as they were like, hey, let's print all this crazy stuff, the company's lawyers were like, do not print that picture of Dimple Knees. Do not.
So they cut him out of it. I was wondering, okay.
Mm-hmm. Nor would they let Coughlan ever outright name James D. Freeborn as Dimple Knees. So this whole thing ran. No one was allowed to know who it was.
But everyone knew. Everyone in Butte knew.
Yeah. So Coughlan said later that Great Falls residents greedily ate up the series, all desperate to know who the fuck Dimple Knees was down there in Butte. But down there, they all knew exactly who the fuck it was.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, when I was researching this man's picture, anything about him essentially has been scrubbed from the internet. The only pictures I've seen of him have been from John Coughlan's book. You cannot find a picture of this man on the internet.
Weird.
You cannot find any information about his wife. Nothing. He has been scrubbed from the fucking internet.
Why?
Probably because of this. Because then I was reading John Coughlan's book, and he doesn't literally tell you who Dimple Knees is until the last line of the book. You have to read the whole thing before he tells you.
Well, now I just have to read the last line.
I
don't have to read any of it. I know who it is.
I'm like, oh my, because I was going through the book and I was like, oh, who is Dimple Knees?
Oh, you didn't even know?
I didn't know, like, when I was first reading it and everything. And so I bought a second book who, like, named who it was first thing. And I was like, okay, he's in the John Coughlan book. So then I would go back through that one as I was researching. And because then I just started reading it again because I was like, did I miss it? Like, did I miss where he says where it is? Nope, it's the last line in that book.
Dang.
I'm like, the night that the article on Bev ran in the Tribune, John Coughlan was at a bar in downtown Helena spending his $100 bonus check for his writing on this series. And he was spending on his friends as they celebrated, the craziest story that was lighting up the entire state. So John's like, partying downtown. But John Coughlan, as he bellied up to the bar to buy another round, the phone rang behind the bar and the bartender answered. And he shouted at John, John, are you supposed to be here? A kind courtesy any good bartender would extend to regulars when the phone would ring and the person on the other end was searching for someone in the bar. In ye olden days before cell phones. It was an incredible time to be alive. So anyways, John, confused, says, yeah, like, I don't even know if he was married at this time, but he's like, I don't fucking care. Yeah, I'll take the phone call. And the next thing he knows, he's hearing the voice of the executive director of the governor's office on the other end of the line saying the government wants to see John in his office at the Capitol now. A stunned Coughlan asked, now it's 8:00 at night. To which Tom Mooney, who is the official on the other end of the line, says, "Now means now, John. It's the governor." So John drives the 2 miles from to the Montana State Capitol from downtown, and the huge building is dark, save for the governor's office.
Fuck that. Nope.
I know.
The governor can wait.
I'm like, can I bring some friends? Tom Mooney lets John Coughlan into the cave-like dark halls of the Capitol, but will not answer John when John repeatedly asks, "What the fuck is going on?" Tom Mooney's like, Finally arriving at Governor Tim Babcock's office, the governor rises from his desk and very matter-of-factly, the governor of the state tells John Coughlan, "They're going to get you, John. They're coming over for Butte to kill you." That's all I can say. Good luck. That's it. He says, "Good luck." Stone face. And Coughlan's like,
he's the governor.
Yeah.
If he can call people to the bar and make them fucking go to the Capitol, see him, then he can like get people arrested in Butte.
Apparently not. He said, "That's all I can say. Good luck." So John Coughlan slept with a shotgun next to him in bed for the next 2 weeks, and with it under his bed for many months after that. Nothing ever happened to John Coughlan. But can you imagine?
Did anything ever attempt to happen?
Not that he's aware of. Yeah. So,
Okay.
Is that crazy? Can you imagine being called into the governor's
Just
office?
the paranoia right there.
Yeah.
Oh my, I would be so fucking paranoid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to eat. I wouldn't be able to sleep.
I know. I was
I'd be a
like,
wreck.
you only snuggled that gun for 2 weeks. I would be still snuggling it.
Mm-hmm.
So when he wrote his book on this case in 2017, John returned to Butte and said that he still felt the need to look over his shoulder while in that town.
Hell yeah.
Nearly 50 years after writing the series on Bev, Butte Vice, and the corrupt officials who ran it all. So John Coughlan was like, can you believe that? That's a crazy
So did that
thing.
article get any of these fuckers arrested or anything though?
Well,
So still nothing really happened to them.
Not right. No. Mm-mm. Butte, people of the state were wrapped each day as the Butte series came out, giddily reading the salacious details that graced the Tribune's front page, but some were not so happy with this series, especially in Butte. Their actual fucking paper chastised the Tribune for airing Butte's dirty laundry. The paper was like, "Oh my God, how dare you?"
Well, next time air your own dirty laundry.
I know. And I'm like, no one's like at that paper like, "We should check into this." No, they're like, they accusing the series of being yellow journalism and ruthlessly blasted the Tribune for trusting a prostitute enough to print her accusations of some of the most upstanding citizens in the Butte community. So the Montana Standard was like, "You motherfuckers." And what about those upstanding citizens that Bev told all about on a statewide stage? In a drastic, almost unheard of turn of events, just kidding, they, like most powerful men in history, went unscathed and faced no repercussions. Nothing. In fact, in the midst of his affair with Bev, James Freeborn was made a district court judge and was held in high regard until his retirement. He spent 16 years. Yes. Like, oh my God, what? So I suppose it wouldn't be surprising that James Freeborn assumed he'd have no repercussions for his actions and could do whatever the fuck he wanted because his father was the Montana State Attorney General from 1937 to 1940. So he was well ensconced in a very powerful, connected family. He probably his whole life was like, "I can do whatever I want."
This kind of reminds me of like a weird episode of Yellowstone.
Seriously. Oh my God.
Except for the son's the attorney general, the dad's the governor, this and that. It's like,
oh
what?
my God. And I didn't even know that's not even mentioned in these books. That I kind of stumbled on. I was like, oh, well, his dad was so James Freeborn was the county attorney for 3 terms before he went on the district judgeship or whatever. Well, his dad did the same thing before becoming attorney general.
Jesus.
And it seems like there's a lot of this like ensconced in their own little weird world. And I really feel that about Butte. I feel like Butte's its own little world.
The most frustrating thing about Butte to me is that fucking church that I can't get into.
I was thinking about that. I was writing the introduction. I was like, she'll be mad that I brought this up.
There's apparently some Greek Orthodox church in there that is just amazing inside.
We can't get in.
And I have tried and tried to go to the I'm like, I'm going to the church. I'm going to go check it out. And doors are always locked.
Do not seek
always
sanctuary
locked.
there. Do not. They're not open.
I don't know when they are open. I do. I need to find out when they actually have a service.
Seriously,
and just go to the service and like hang out. They'll probably like kick me out after. Just be like, no.
You don't look for. You're not from Butte, are you?
I'm a Boggs.
Please. So James' freeborn brother, Bill, the bagman, who often shook Bev down for her monthly payoffs, visited Boulder Hot Springs in Boulder, Montana in 1970, which at the time was called the Diamond Ass Ranch Hotel. It's one word, Ranch Hotel.
The Diamond Ass?
S.
Okay.
Ranch Hotel. Yes. During the mid-20th century, apparently this place was like renowned as a getaway for the wealthy, celebrities, and politicians. And so Bill was there when he drowned during his trip in one of the pools with a blood alcohol level that was 3 times the legal limit.
That's probably why they don't allow alcohol in there anymore.
Probably. They're like, we haven't recovered from the 1970. Actually, no, his wife did sue them, and she sued them for like, I don't know, it was like $150,000, which again, back then, huge difference in, you know, how much that would be. And they only ended up paying her $5,000 or something. Oh my God. Yeah, and I was like, you should have, just knowing what I know about this family, like, she was probably very suffering her whole marriage. You probably should have given her more. Also, so James D. Freeborn, who's Bev's Dimple Knees lover, had a son, James D. Freeborn Jr. As I said, this Freeborn is like scrubbed from the internet. So when you put in his name, Junior comes up. And I am like, okay. Well, it also comes up with Junior's wife's obituary, which her obituary starts with, she was married to the love of her life since whatever year they got married. And I was like, oh no. But at the time, I didn't realize they were 2 different people. Oh. And so I was like, oh.
Like, that's real weird.
Yeah, I'm like, does she not know there's like books written about her husband? But it was the son. So I think they had a loving relationship. The other James D. Freeborn, but Senior, again, scrubbed almost from the internet. I can't believe it. I'm like, wow. And all of the times that I've done a story, never seen anything like that. Never.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. So anyway, so Bill drowns just like 2 years.
Is someone going to come after us because you did this?
I don't know.
I know.
She is an innocent party.
No knowledge about this. Love you, Butte.
I actually love Butte too. It's just different. That's all. And in a good way. So yeah, Bill drowns. His brother has been, given one of the highest positions in the county or in the district. So nothing has happened to them, the Freeborns. Nothing. The fallout from Coughlon's Butte Vice series was felt across the state, though, because apparently some state officials, who they were working for the state at this point, but I think they were originally from Butte, and they were kind of pissed off. They were like, going up to Great Falls to check out their brothels, which seemed, we had 2 apparently at this time, and they seemed, after this was all, printed, those brothels seemed to like disappear over the night. Okay. And these 2 officials are like, fine. So they came right for Great Falls.
Wasn't there rainbow
Oh, was it? That doesn't surprise me.
I thought it was for some reason.
I can't remember these 2. One was on the edge of town, and the other one I can't remember where it was, but I don't think it was the rainbow. Okay. So that must have been a little bit before. But yeah, it's just so funny that they were like, what now, Great Falls? In Butte, all the remaining brothels were shuttered, like pretty much overnight. Something that seemed to upset Butte's mayor, Tom Powers. Who stated that after the Tribune story, the shutting down of the brothels would, quote, cause more problems than they would solve. The Butte mayor is like,
how dare you?
I know. Powers went on to say, at least we're honest in Butte. We actually admit to having houses of prostitution. Can't say that for the other towns in Montana. What?
Were they actually shut down, or was it just like the bars closed in at 2? Did they just turn the lights off and shutter the windows in?
They did shut down until 1971, so 3 years after this, when Ruby Garrett, Lee Aragani, arrives on scene and is like, "But the Dumas, we back!" So it was a couple years, but like, I think this John Coughlan even interviewed one of the houses that turned down, and she was like, "This is like a hotel now. Like, people are just paying to stay here." And he's like, "Okay." I don't know. After Tom Powers said this, the next year, 1969, was a re-election year. He was not re-elected. Powers went on to run the Warm Springs, Warm Springs, until he was accused of bribery in 1975. Powers' trial was well underway when the presiding judge, Judge Dimple Knees Freeborn, abruptly halted Powers' trial, and the charges against Butte's former mayor were dismissed. Freeborn was like, "Get him out of here."
Bribery. It's what we all do. It's fine.
Somewhere in this all too, after this, like, there was a governor race the next year, and Bev and Dimple Knees and all, like, the Snodgrass Report was like in the thick of it. The governors were like fighting with each other. I guess this was the first time politics in Montana, they were like, "Ooh, you guys are kind of mean." And because they kept would like bring this up, and it was like a central focus of this governor race, which is crazy to me.
That is
crazy. Yeah. So, Reverend Joseph Finnegan, the one that Bev, she was in his office when Coughlan came to interview her, he defended Bev's choice to go to the press, claiming that the anti-vice movement in Butte had tried everything else to get officials' attention. He went on to say, "The Snodgrass Report is in the hands of the Attorney General and the county attorney, and we want to know if the report is true. If everything's in there, like, they should look at it. We insist that they investigate all charges. If they are true, the guilty should be punished." I kind of said that louder because Father Finnegan would remain outspoken on vice in Butte and underage drinking until he was put on trial in 1981 after being accused of making 3 minor boys perform homosexual acts on each other, him, and making them exercise naked in his office, performing strip searches on children, and fondling boys when he ran the Denny Driscoll Boys Home in Butte.
But you know what? He has God in his heart, so he's going to heaven.
He's going to heaven, forgiven. He's like, "If they are true, the guilty should be punished." Mm-hmm. Father Finnegan was found not guilty.
Fucking shut up.
He worked as a priest in Whitehall and then went on to be the director of the Catholic Charities in Helena until he retired in 2002.
Gross.
So gross. I'm like, bringing it up. I'm bringing it up. Oh, As for Judge James D. Freeborn, he led a long life, and he outlived Bev by 10 years. He died in 1998 at the age of 86 after serving 16 years on the bench. When he died, there were varying characteristics of his personality that people spoke about. One of the previous editors of the Montana Standard said Freeborn had been an incredible mentor who had enjoyed a nip or two, and he liked to gamble, and he had some juice on the streets of Butte. Yeah, I bet he did. Because he had mistresses. One county attorney said Freeborn was rude, defiant, and constantly interrupted attorneys in his court, and often wouldn't let evidence be admitted into trials. He just like,
I was like, no.
He was like, no.
If there was any kind of evidence that would prove someone guilty.
Right.
He's like, no.
The Derby bar owner in Butte said Freeborn was a fixture at his bar and played the ponies right up until he died. Another person to meet him in his courtroom said he resented Freeborn's thinly veiled snide accusations toward attorneys. Of all the things people had to say to describe Freeborn after his death, not one of them mentioned his dimpled knees. As for our dear brave Bevy, after the Windsor burned and the Butte series graced the front of the Tribune, her insurance check cleared, she loaded her pickup camper with her 7 poodles and got the hell out of Butte in October 1968.
A lot of poodles.
So many poodles. Girl, what? Butte was no longer safe for her. Even her sister and brother-in-law who remained in Butte were harassed after her departure. Like, they were, so
did she bring her family?
So just one sister came out. Mm-hmm, yeah, so
she was like, hey, I'm doing okay here. Like, you guys should just come on out and check it out. And
I kind of want to look up her sister's name to be like, hey, did you surprise her? And was like, surprise. And I was like, don't tell mom and dad about the brothel. I have no idea how that went down. So Bev, running from her old life, she headed across country back to where she started, West Virginia. She went back to waitressing in Charleston, West Virginia, but was ready to hit the road again in late 1968. Her destination, Washington, D.C. And her goal was to hand over any of the remaining evidence she possessed from her time in Butte and planned to hand it over to the Montana Senators Mike Mansfield and Lee Metcalf, imploring them to investigate the flagrant violations of the law happening in Butte. She was like, here you go. Metcalf would telegram John Couglin during this, after they met, to say that he heard out Bev, and although he did not think that this whole thing was under federal jurisdiction, he told Couglin at least that he had asked federal authorities to look into her accusations of what was going on in Butte. Nothing ever came of these alleged investigations.
Of course.
Yeah. There was like one, I think in 1969, there was a new mayor. Yeah, because Tom Powers was like, what's wrong with prostitution?
He was like, at least we own it.
I know. He was like, we're honest folk. So the new mayor like sent a thing to the police chief. I guess the police chief like didn't even dress in a uniform. He just kind of came and went as he fucking pleased in his street clothes. And I guess the new mayor was like, get it together. Wear your fucking uniform, show up to work. Like, I don't think it was all better with the police force, but I think there were some things that people were like, oh my God. So they at least pretended for a while. Yeah. Leaving DC, Bev headed out west once again, quietly slipping into Butte en route to Idaho so that she could see her sister and her family members and the veterinarian who had always cared for her beloved poodles. She hoped the vet would be able to help her find the dogs a good home, as she could no longer take care of them. When the task was done, Bev slipped from Butte again, safely headed towards Washington State. She eventually got to Washington State. She went to Idaho first and then settled there in Walla Walla. Bev's next era started in earnest when she started studying counseling at a community college. Beverly Snodgrass went on to earn her degree in counseling and then headed to the Seattle area, where she worked for a state institution as a counselor, helping people who needed help most. So, love that for her. Bev, the madame, who bravely defied and called out local corrupt officials who habitually took advantage of women, whether it was their bodies, their emotions, their money, or all three, died peacefully in 1987 at the age of 65 in her Washington home.
Oh, she was young.
Yeah. That's what, when I saw how old Dimple Knees lived to, I'm like, bitch. Mm-hmm. Oh. And that is the story of Butte's Dimple Knees sex scandal and the madame who blew the lid on the whole thing. It was fucking wild.
That is crazy. I knew Butte was crazy and wild and everything but it.
But I think like if you were to just not say any years in this either, you'd be like 1908. you know, like 1968.
Yeah.
And the last brothel didn't close until 1982 in the world. So just crazy. So yeah, that was
Father Finnegan, though, that was a bomb.
Oh, I had to put it in there because I was like, of course you did.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for listening to Storyteller. Tell your friends and join us on Instagram
at storyteller.pod,
TikTok
at storytellerpod,
Facebook
at storyteller podcast.
And be sure to follow, like, comment, and download the podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Bye.
Thank you.
My dad said that he
went there?
No, he would never. He's an angel, but he said he knew people that went there, and he was like, "Why would you do that?" No. But I'm like, well, yeah.